I think I seen a UFO. The year was 2018. The season was spring. I was 16 years old. The day started off like any other. I woke up at 6 a.m., brushed my teeth, got in the shower, put my clothes on, rushed out of the front door of our apartment with my siblings to go stand at the bus stop. The school bus arrives at 6:45. We board, and finally make our way to school. On the way, we stop in a Dollar General parking lot, wait on the arrival of another bus, and finally exchange kids. One of my best friends rides the other bus, but only in the mornings. He's one of the kids that switches to my bus. He steps on, looks around, sees me, and makes his way towards my seat. He sits down beside me. The rest of the trip was the same as any other morning bus ride. Once we arrive at school, we are greeted by our other friends who always wait on us. We say hi, exchange some words, and all migrate to the cafeteria for breakfast. Every single morning, my friend Gavin and I would always get a Pop-Tart for breakfast. This day was no different. After we got our food, we then migrated back to the hallway to wait for the first bell to ring. During this time, I messaged my girlfriend good morning and told her I loved her. The rest of the school day was uneventful and no different than any other day. We all made jokes, goofed off, almost fist fought, the usual high school teenager stuff. During the school day, I messaged my girlfriend to see if she wanted to come over to my house after school. She confirmed, so we made plans to watch a movie that evening. I went through the rest of the day on autopilot, just completing schoolwork and talking to my friends. Nothing felt off at all. This whole day felt just as normal as every other day that I've had for the last year. No, 5. No, 10. No. My whole life. This would all change. I meet up with my friend to grab the bus and ride home. While on the bus, we joke, laugh, goof around, just normal teenagers' shenanigans. The bus ride home was a pretty long one, about an hour with all the stops, and it always seemed to be longer in the evenings than it was in the mornings. The route we took was the same as we always did. Once my friend got off the school bus, I put my headphones in and listened to music for the rest of the ride, just as any other day. About 30 minutes later, I would arrive home. Once the bus stopped, I stepped off. Before my foot had even hit the ground, I was already on my phone sending a message to my girlfriend. Being a teenager, I was excited to hang out with her. I remember asking her about a potential movie we had been wanting to watch. Once I made it to our apartment, I ran straight upstairs to my room. I threw my backpack on my bed, laid my phone on my desk, picked up my PS4 controller, and looked out of the window. Some important information. We lived in an apartment complex. This meant we had many neighbors. The complex was sectioned off into different blocks of units, with each block differing in size based on the size of the units. So they had like 1-bedroom units, 2-bedroom units, 3-bedroom units, and 4-bedroom units, and they would all be sectioned off in their own blocks and sectioned off in their own sections of the complex. We lived in a 4-bedroom unit, so our block had 6 to 8 units. Our apartment was located dead in the center of our block, so we had neighbors directly on both sides. Our block was located near the main end or the deepest part of the complex. The block ran parallel to a river behind our apartment. This river was a state border, so directly across it was another state. Once again, the river was located behind our apartment. It was about 500 to 600 feet away, located downhill. To get to the river, you had to walk down a pretty steep hill. The riverbank was lined with trees on both sides, with enough clearing in some parts to see the river and the bordering state beyond. Directly behind my house was a fence. This fence blocked access to the river and was also lined with trees. At the edge of our backyard also stood a good amount of trees. I'm saying all of this because I want it to be very apparent that there were a ton of trees in this area. Tying back to what I mentioned earlier, it was also spring. This meant that all the trees were covered with leaves. There were no trees that were bare. My bedroom was at the very back of the apartment, adjacent to the river. I had a window that faced said river and was high enough to see over some of the trees in our backyard, shrubs and stuff, so I could pretty much see directly across the river to the next state. My bed was right against that window. Across the river, there was a busy road, a road that had always had a good amount of traffic, even late at night. You could always see the headlights from cars from my bedroom window. I would always lay in my bed and look out the window to watch the cars. I've always loved car spotting, and sometimes a cool Mustang or an older Camaro would fly down that road and I would hear the exhaust roar. Why am I telling you all of this? All of this would eventually lead to a night that would change my life forever. It was around 6:30 p.m. I heard a knock at the front door. I pulled my bedroom door open as fast as any human possibly could jumped down the staircase and ran to the front door. I opened. It was my girlfriend. Told her to come in. We both went back upstairs. Once we made it to my bedroom, I grabbed my controller. The movie we were going to watch was on Netflix, so I opened the app. We both sat down on my bed. I went to the search bar, typed in the movie name, and clicked play. It began. I remember we scooted our backs up against the wall behind my bed, sitting upright to have a better view of the movie. 30 minutes pass. The movie is still going. We're still watching. But then, I see something in the corner of my eye. Something in the window. A reflection? No. It was outside. It was green. Then it was red. I looked out of the window, shocked. It was right there, hovering intently over the river. Or so I thought. I got closer to the window to get a better look. After a few seconds, I realized it was further back, probably about 400 to 500 yards. I thought for a second, oh, it's probably just a semi-truck coming down that road. No. After about 15 seconds, it moved closer, and not in any slow manner. It zipped. It was now directly over the river. I could see it through the trees, the light shining very bright, almost blinding even. It moved left, almost teleporting. I thought, maybe this is a drone that someone is flying. No. Once again, it zipped backwards, covering what looked to be 200 to 300 yards in a matter of seconds. The weird thing is, it didn't really seem to get any smaller once it was further away. Like the light didn't decrease in size the further away that it got. It flew back to the river, once again, while still seeming to maintain the same size as before. All of this happening while I was still in shock. I couldn't really make out any features because the light was so bright. I didn't hear any sort of noise, and our walls were paper thin. You could always hear the neighbors on both sides talking if it was anything louder than a whisper. I kept trying to make out any sort of physically identifying features, but nothing. This all happened in the span of 50 to 60 seconds, but it felt like an hour. My mind was racing intently. I finally gained enough comprehension to say something out loud. Look. That's all I could say. I was talking to my girlfriend. She heard me and seen the state of disbelief I was in, so she too looked out the window. Once she caught a glimpse of it, it was like I regained thought. I got up and ran to tell everyone in my house. All my siblings piled up in my room and looked out of the window. We all looked, in disbelief. There it was, still just hovering right there. No noise, no vibration of the room, just light. My little brother whispered, "Take a picture, bub." I don't know why I didn't think of that. I was so caught up in the moment, in awe of the absolute spectacle that we're all seeing, that I couldn't even think to grab my phone. But I did. An important note, at this time, I was still using an iPhone 5S, as it was all my family could afford. This phone would always give me issues with the battery. When the phone was being used, the battery would stay charged for maybe 45 to 50 minutes, and that's from like 100% till it dies. This caused me to always leave the phone on charge, as it was in this moment. I grabbed my phone off my desk, unplugging the charger. I then ran back to the other side of the room, to the window, and jumped on my bed. I glanced out of the window, seeing the floating light still there, in the same spot. I upped my phone to capture the light, hit the home button. Nothing. What? You've got to be kidding, I thought to myself. I looked back down with my phone in hand, hit the power button. Nothing. The screen was black. I held the power button down, maybe to try to turn it on. Nothing. Still black. I look up, out of the window. It was gone. In the span of about 20 seconds, it had disappeared. While I was fiddling with my phone, it vanished. I looked back down at my phone, and I kid you not, the screen was lit. The phone was on. There, on the lock screen, a picture of my girlfriend. I went to the camera. The phone was functioning perfectly. The battery was on 100%. I cannot express in words the amount of shock and pure confusion I felt in this moment. Everyone was still in disbelief. We all looked at one another, reading each other's faces. It didn't help. Nothing would. None of us knew what we had just seen. My whole family and my girlfriend had just witnessed the same thing that I did, and without that, no one would believe me. I know it all sounds made up, but I promise you it isn't. As I mentioned, I couldn't make out any features, like whether it was metallic or made of some other material. It was, from what I could gather, just light. Blinding light. It took a little while, but we all went back to normal, just continuing our nightly routines. My girlfriend and I went back to watching the movie, but kept discussing what we thought it could have been. After the movie, she went back home. I sat in my room by myself in the dark. As I got ready for bed, I turned on a Bay Area Bugs GTA RP YouTube video. I watched probably the first 30 minutes of it or so, but kept looking out of the window thinking I might possibly see that light again, but I didn't. I didn't see anything else that night. Nothing on that road. No traffic, no cars, no headlights. It was abnormally quiet. I'm not even kidding when I say this. I feared for my life that night. Not only mine, but my whole family's. It was sincere dread, a hot feeling of terror down the back of my neck. I truly felt like someone was going to knock on our door in the middle of the night, like the Men in Black or something, and take us out. I felt like we were going to be silenced, and we hadn't even told the story to anyone yet. It was truly one of the most awe-inspiring, mesmerizing, but confusing and terrifying moments of my life. I still, to this day, have no idea what we saw. There were no reports in the local news or newspapers. None of our neighbors ever mentioned it, and nothing from anyone outside of our household. The day after, I went back to school. I honestly didn't even tell anyone because I knew they wouldn't believe me, especially without my family or girlfriend there to back me up. This is the first mention to anyone outside of my household of this story on my account. I'm not sure if anyone else in my family has told anybody. I promise this is true. I know it sounds like a horror movie plot or something about aliens. I don't know if it was aliens. It could have been anything. I really thought it was a drone, but then like the size of the light, like how bright it was, just did not make sense for a drone. Unless it had like a 50,000 lumen. It lit up the whole area. I couldn't see down to the river to see a reflection through the trees because the light was so bright, like it was kind of just covering everything. But there was no noise or nothing, and the way that it moved instantly made me think it was a drone, like how fast it zipped back and forth. But then it got to the point where it like moved backwards, almost like literally teleporting. That's how fast it was moving. Has anybody else experienced anything like this? If you have, let me know in the comments. I'd like to read your stories. And if you have any questions or anything, let me know. I'll try to respond to them. It was 3 to 4 minutes of just, I don't even know, confusion. Insane.